So I've been messing around with the new Duke. Taken and I've pulled the head and everything here. And the first thing I notice is nothing's bent, and this engine is exceptionally clean. Here's the valve cover. I haven't wiped this. I haven't done anything with it, and it is clean, 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 clean. All the valve train is nice and clean. Even the cylinder head itself, if I flip it up here, it's in really nice shape. It's just got the usual carbon, and that's really it. Head gasket's still on there, but that'll come off here in a second. Cooling system's got a bit of crap in it, right? That's not unheard of, especially if it was a southern truck, because I know down south a lot of times guys will run just water in them. But that's not the end of the world anyway, all things considered. So all I've done so far is take and clean the deck of the block up a little bit here and clean the carbon off the pistons and everything. You can see there's a little bit of water spotting in number one just from it sitting. So the way I was taught to clean blocks up in preparation for new head gaskets is just 320 sandpaper on a block, and you're going to go in across. So you're going to come across the deck this way, and then you're going to come across the deck this way. And at the end of the day, you can see the machine work from the factory was a hell of a lot worse than what we've got it to now, so we're not going to have any issues sealing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw the cylinder head and the valve train, valve cover, tappet cover, all that stuff in the degreaser, get it all nice and clean. And in the cylinder head here, we're going to put new valve stem seals, and then we'll lap the valves, and then we'll clean the surface of it up, and we'll clean the intake surface up, and that's pretty much it. We're going to put the head back on, and then we can start working on the timing stuff and the oil pan. Okay, it's a good day to be an Iron Duke here in the garage today. So I pulled the cylinder head out of the goop and rinsed it off, which you can see that this engine is in awesome shape. Super, super decent. I did take and just took the wire wheel and took what was left of the old head gasket off. So we're going to get into lapping the valves and changing the valve stem seals. But before we do that, I figured I'd show you some of the other parts here that are pretty clean. So it's all of our valve train and our push rods. There's a valve cover off this thing, which this thing's in awesome, awesome shape. There's the lifter cover. So I'm quite happy with this engine overall. Okay, I'm not going to get too carried away because there's about a million videos, I'm sure, out there about lapping valves. So what we have here, of course, is our cylinder head. And in order to remove our valve, we have to compress our valve spring and then remove the retainer. So what we use for that, of course, is a valve spring compressor, which I've had this one a long time. I actually got it off another guy. We also need our valve lapping tool and our valve grind compound. So first things first, what we have to do is get in here, and we'll have to just go ahead and compress our springs. I'm only going to show you just the first two valves here, and then, well, I'm sure you can figure it out from there. It's not rocket science. All right, I gotta do is back that off a little more. Okay, there's our 2 retainers out. Like that, like that. And there's our first valve spring off. And our first valve that's free. So we're going to clean out all inside there too. I just wanted to get this sort of going here. So do a little better view for you here. There you go. That's that off. All right. 1, 2. Okay. Side valve loose. Okay, so with the valves removed, I just took a wire brush and knocked a little bit of carbon and stuff off the valve seats here. You can see they're not in that bad a shape, really. Overall, right? Like, they're not terrible. But that's why we're here, is because we can make them better. Now, the exhaust valves are a little crappy, but that's okay. That's why we lap them. Because the whole point of us lapping these valves is to create a better seal. The first thing I do is I take and I put a bit of oil on the valve stem. And then our lapping compound. What we're going to do is we're going to take a bit of it and apply it to the face of the seat. Wow. The valve angle where it meets the seat. That's what I should say. Like that. Oops. Hopefully I'm holding that in the right spot. Now we're going to take and reinsert our valve. And you're going to hear there's a bit of grit to it, right? And now what we're going to do is we're going to work it back and forth. Okay, after rotating the valves around about, well, feels like about 3 million times, you can see that our seats are now fairly clean. And then our face of our valves, if the camera would focus, are also very clean now. Which means these valves are going to go ahead and seal much better. Okay, so our next thing will be to flip the cylinder head over and we're going to change the valve stem seals. And once we do that, we're going to do the same thing on 3 more cylinders. And the cylinder head will be pretty much cleaned up and ready to go. Okay, this part's pretty easy. So all I do is, they're usually on here like this. I take a little screwdriver, I go under there, off it comes. So there's our old stem seals off. And usually when you buy a gasket set, they come with the stem seals. You can purchase them separately though if you need to. So, take our new stem seals. And they go on something like that. And then what we're going to do is, prior to installing the valve, I just take a bit of oil and put it in there. Like that. And now we can take and flip our head up. Like that. Take our new and improved valves, and they can go in here like this, and you just kind of gently work them through. There's that one in. There's that one in. Okay, we're gonna just hold that there for a second. And then go ahead and put our compressor on. Okay, I'll take our 2 retainers. And if you want the retainers to hold in there by themselves, what you can do is put a dab of grease on them. Okay, there's one back on. What I'm going to do on this side is grab the end of the retainer again, put it in there. Give it a press. And just like that, we now have those 2 back together. And in addition to being back together, those 2 are going to seal really good. So I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing for the next 6. And we'll go to the next step. Okay, so at this point we are pretty much ready to put the cylinder head on. What I've done is I took a bit of clean oil, just kind of lubed all the cylinders. The other thing I did was I've gone ahead and taken the sanding block and cleaned the face of the cylinder head as well, same way I did the block. So with that said, now we can put our new head gasket on the block. Okay, so there's our head gasket just sitting on the block here, and we can take and slide our head on. Okay, so what we're going to do here is try to turn the dowels like that. Now the head is on. So in our S10 service manual here, which is what this one is, if we flip here to our section about cylinder head, it says that those 2 bolts located on the far ends must have sealing compound applied to threads. Here's a simplified view of what we need to do. So we're going to go ahead and, well, do that. So our first torque is 18 foot-pounds. So we're going to start at number 1. Okay, number 2. Number 3. Oops, sorry, number 3 is actually this way. Number 4. 5. 6. 7. 8. 9. And 10. Now we move to our next step. Okay, step 2, we're going to tighten all but number 9 to 30 foot-pounds. Number 9 will get torqued to 40, but it'll be torqued on its own. So number 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We'll do 10. Okay, we're going to set it to 40 foot-pounds. And we'll do number 9. Okay, now we can do our next step. Final step is to tighten all except for number 9, 120 degrees. Number 9 goes a quarter turn, which is 90 degrees. I normally wouldn't go by the flats of it. I would use an angle gauge, but I can't find my angle gauge. So, you know, pretty typical the way things go around here. What I've done is gone through and I've put a corresponding paint mark on both the cylinder head and the bolt. And we're going to go ahead and we'll just turn them to flats. So by that they mean for this one to be torqued properly, we'd have to make it so that this flat here is facing here. Okay, that is the cylinder head torqued. Not the most scientific way, but very functional. First things first, we're going to take and put our push rods back in. So that's just a bit of moly coat. What I do is just take and kind of lube them up a little bit. Like that. Same way that they outline in the GM manual. Now we go to retainers. These are our push rod guides. So you'll notice that one has a 2 on it. This one has 4. This one's number 3. That sucker here is number 1. On there like that. Now we can get our push rod or our rocker arms. Okay, with our rocker arms here, what I usually do is I just lubricate them a little bit. I don't really like any engine parts to start out dry. So what I do is inside here, that's where the little ball goes, and then where the push rod comes up and where it touches the tip of the valve. So I go ahead and I lubricate all those points of it because that seems like a good idea to me. So there's the ball. It goes down in here because that's what the rocker arm actually rides on, right? And there's our bolt. For now, we're just going to put everything on loose. Okay, so we'll take and snug them up. What do you mean snug? You don't want to crank these down for a multitude of reasons. Because there is a torque spec for these. And the reason we use the moly coat is it'll actually break down in the engine oil, and what will happen is after we do our initial run-in of the engine, I'm going to end up draining the oil out of it anyway, and it'll end up in that oil. So it'll give us initial lubrication without diluting the oil. Okay, so with the engine set to the base circle, which essentially is your number one, both valves closed, so in the overlap position. So it would be after your exhaust valve closes and before your intake valve opens. I'm going to set them to, what do I say, 24 foot-pounds. 22, 24. And I'm going to grab a deep socket. All right. Okay. What we're going to do is after we get it set up and torqued, we're going to roll the engine over a few more times by hand. We'll get number one back to the base circle again, and we'll recheck the torque. The reason I'm doing this by the book is a lot of guys will just go to 0 lash, which is fine, other than when I was an apprentice and I was fairly new to things. I did that, you know, I did 0 lash, and I ended up with a bunch of broken push rods, which I don't know if they're still on top of my toolbox, but I left them there for quite a while as a reminder. So number one is now open for intake. Intake's now closed. That's now compression. Okay. And we're coming around. Okay, there's exhaust valve is open, exhaust valve is closed. Okay, we gotta go back just a little bit. About right there. Okay, both valves are closed. Go back and we're going to recheck everything again. Oil pump works good because it just dumped a bunch of oil out. Okay. Next thing we can do is clean this all up here and clean the top of the valve cover edge off, and also clean obviously the corresponding components, and we can get ready to put those gaskets on. Okay, so what I've done is I put a little coat of high-tack gasket adhesive around the outside edge here, and a dab of silicone on each bottom here. And the Felpro kit actually comes with a gasket from the factory. It is nothing more than silicone. But we would like this to seal a little better than the factory one did, which obviously didn't seal very good because the whole side of the engine was coated in oil. So we're going to put these on, and then we're going to go ahead and just snug them up, and they get torqued. to a 90 inch-pounds. So I'll have to grab the other torque wrench. Set it to 90. Okay, 90. Okay. So, okay. That's it torqued. Got our valve cover ready now. Okay, so just like I did with the rest of the lifter cover there, I went ahead and did the same with the valve cover. So I gave it a coat of the gasket adhesive, and I've done the same with the block. Well, cylinder head, I should say. And hopefully that's gonna keep us from having leaks. Or so we hope. Okay, so with the valve cover on, we're gonna go ahead and torque the bolts to 48 inch-pounds. What I'm going to do is I'll go ahead and I'll just kind of snug them up here. Okay, I'll start back here. Okay. 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 And our last one. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to drain the oil out of this and do all that other stuff. But yeah, we're moving forward for once. I'm hoping I get a phone call in the next day or two that the motor mount brackets and the gas tank bracket are done at the sandblasters. Because in theory, if I get that stuff, I can actually maybe by next weekend have the engine and transmission back in the truck. So that'd be cool. Well, that's all I got for this week. Thank you for watching, and hopefully, well, something's been of interest to you anyway.